Good morning, everyone. I'm your host, Anne-Marie Band. Welcome to the Daily Edge on the Place Your Trades Network. We are the network that focuses on trading daily options using the CME Group's event contracts to trade indices, energy, metals, and now Bitcoin. Today's broadcast is brought to you by Tradeovate, which has built a custom app dedicated to trading the CME contract event contracts. You can trade them on the custom app or using the DOM on the main platform. What I'd love to share with you first is the Place Your Trades site. You can go to the dashboard, you can see it highlighted, and we have some excellent tools that you can use, from InvestaQuant telling us about profit margins and ratios that we can get if we are looking for price action to move up. And my very favorite tool comes from Quick Strike, made just for the Place Your Trades Network. And it shows us all about what these event contracts look like. Yes, no, how you can buy them, where they are, and we'll be sitting and looking at that quite a bit more. We also have the ability to come in here. This is the only space that you can come in and see the live pricing, as well as where the contracts sit at in the current space. You can say, yes, I believe it's going to trade over 2080, and no, I think it's not. Today, 2080 is running about 1450, and that means if you buy it and it closes above 4280, you're going to get a return of 20. So today I have a very special guest. I have known Jerremy for probably as long as I've known anyone in the trading space personally. Jerremy Newsome, we know him as Newsome Nuggets. Jerremy, welcome to the show. Real life trading. Jerremy has got such a wonderful story. He's an amazing gentleman. And Jerremy, how's it going today? You're inside of a magnificent RV. Looks fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. We're doing the real life trading country cruise at this stage. I got my whole family, and we're just going around the country. It's a dream of mine. I've always wanted to do it. So,
me too. And
yeah.
it's nice to live vicariously through you. Actually, how many times have I actually said that to you in private DMs?
Many times.
So many times.
Many times.
I know. So
and I will. I do
want
to give you a quick shout out.
Yeah,
I want to give you a quick shout out as well too, because you mentioned you knew me for a long time. I mean, for everyone listening and watching, Anne-Marie was my very, very first mentor that I ever connected with, that I reconnected with, that I liked, that I enjoyed. I joined her trading room at the time. She was the first person to teach me that candles and trading have emotions, right? That there are people on the other side of the screen, and to interpret the sentiment. And that was when I was 20 years old, Anne-Marie. So I'm 35 now. So we're talking 15 years. We go back, and the story for me is when I was working with Anne-Marie at her first, one of her earlier trading rooms. I was at Nationwide Insurance. I would have my workstation to my left. I'd have my trading station to my right, and I would get my work done. I'd get my trading done. I would always be there, just learning and trying to immerse myself, spending as much time as I can. The very, very first trade I ever took, consciously being aware of what I was doing, was at Nationwide Insurance. I went to Google which silver stock to buy. That's what I typed in. The first stock that came up was First Majestic Silver, and I bought it. That was it. Research done. I had $9,000 in my IRA 401k at the time, so the stock was trading at $9. I bought all of it, 1,000 shares. It went up to 12. I sold it, made $3,000 in a week or two, which was about or a little bit more than I made at work for a whole month. And that changed everything.
And you're hooked.
I'm hooked.
Yeah. So you had a plan in terms of motion. One of the things that I love about you, Jerremy, is that you've always set out a goal and said, this is where I'm going, and this is what's next. And I've watched you walk through those paces, and your ability to go from idea to creation, to the genesis of that creation, and to the production and fulfillment of that has really been one of your most endearing qualities. And I wanted to talk to folks today about that destination bias that you have, with always your mind on the goal. And so many of us working through trading, we forget that life and trading are really similar, right? And so when we set out those spaces, we have a tendency to get sidetracked. So what about you in your travel through trading and working gave you the space where you said, you know what, this is what I want to do next. This is how I want to do it. And then stepping through the spaces and making sure that you, when it didn't go quite like you thought it would, how you brought yourself back to center.
I'm going to tell a really good story about that. The very first time I traveled because of trading, so I was still at Nationwide Insurance. So this is 2013 now, I think. This particular story unfolds, and I wanted to go to England. I'd never traveled internationally, other than like I was on a cruise when I was 12, but that doesn't count, like, Caribbean or whatever.
Right.
I never traveled. I wanted to go to England, and the reason I picked England, they spoke English. I was like, all right,
Good choice.
I could probably figure this out. And I sat down, and so I got clear. Number one, I got clear on what do I want to do. Number two, I got clear on the details. How do I do that? So passport, how much are the flights? Where am I staying? How much does it cost? So I got clear on the details. So now I knew how much the whole trip cost for about a month. Hotels, flights, food, drink, the whole thing. And it was going to be me and some other people that were going. So I did the math, and it came out to about $7,000. I was like, okay, I need to make $7,000 plus my rent, car payments, all the things. All right, boom, now it's 10. So then I came up with a goal. How can I make $10,000 trading? What a specific question that is. So that will be step 3, is get really, really specific questions, because every question has an answer. Every problem has a solution. If we know where we're going, like you mentioned earlier beautifully, then we can come up with a strategy on how to get there. You can walk, you can ride a bike, you can get in an RV, you can take a flight. But you know where you're going, beautiful. Now, how do you get there? You can ask those very, very piercing questions. And that was a very piercing question. And the way I did it was an Amazon trade. Amazon had this big triangle that was forming. I had just learned about triangles from some book. And I was like, oh, cool, here it is. Here's a triangle. And I bought call options, and it broke out and it ran out, and I held them. And then like at 9,870, I was like, sell. Sold it. And I pulled all the money out of my broker. And that'd probably be step 4 or 5, is just take action. Like, once you have the questions, once you know where you're going, once you have the clarity, a lot of traders will, the biggest challenge is they don't pull money out of their trading accounts to do anything with it tangibly. And I took the action, right? I swiped a credit card. I bought the tickets. I bought the flights. I bought the hotels. And then I went and traded for it. And then I moved earth and heaven to make it happen. I told my boss, hey, I'm going away to England for a month. And they're like, dude, you can't do that. I was like, well, I have paid time off. And they're like, well, you don't have that much paid time off. I was like, well, how about I just don't take any paid time off? Don't pay me. I'll promise I'll be back. And they made me sign a contract that said I would return to work, which I did. I came back to Nationwide, but it was so cool to experience that, and to be in that environment, and just really understand how all this is progressing. And I apologize, I did get the time wrong. This was it wasn't 2013. This was 2009. So yeah, 2013 I had left already. But anyway, 2009, went to England, paid for it with trading, Amazon triangle, bought calls, everything was beautiful.
So what comes out of that story is a big piece, and it's courage. It's courage to say, all right, I found the opportunity. I'm pulling the trigger. and then not being greedy at the edge of the space that says, hey, it's going really good, but here's my target. I'm out of here. I'm going to take it to go. So in real life trading, where it is that you spend you pour a lot of your energy and time into your folks and into real life trading, that organization, what do you find traders struggle with most when they have a plan and they want to accomplish it, but you see them struggling in that space? Where is it that, because we can all sit and dream, right? Dream and plan being two totally different things. But how do you get folks to say, all right, I understand what I want, but what do I have currently in myself that's making me not take that next step? What do you see as a commonality of folks not being able to get where they want to go?
This is going to be such a deep subconscious answer to that question. But the answer, in my experience, is it's the fear of being judged. That's what it boils down to. It's the fear of being judged, because people can dream. You're absolutely right. So people will dream. They'll sit around and they'll go, if I could make an extra $30,000 a month, my whole life would change forever. Forever. Cool. That's a good dream. Awesome. Now, who can you ask? What can you do? How do you elevate yourself to a different position in life so that you can obtain that amount of money? Because it's less about the money. It's more about the person, the container to hold that amount of money consistently. Because in order to do certain things, you are going to have to do things you've never done before. And that could be, perfect example. A lot of individuals that say that goal will initially be working at a job. And I'll ask the question, have you asked your boss, how is it financially possible for me to make $30,000 a month at this company? Or is it? Is it possible, or how is it possible? Now, they might say, no, it's not possible. But generally, most companies, like if it's a small business or a medium business, they're probably doing okay. And someone out there is making $30,000 a month. Maybe it's just the CEO. Maybe that's the only person. But someone out there is making money. So what if your boss said, listen, Samantha, the only way for you to make $30,000 a month is you'd have to close 100 deals a month. Okay, well, whatever that deal is like whatever closing looks like. Now you have an answer. But a lot of people are afraid to ask. That's the thing, is that fear of judgment, that fear of that person's going to say no, that person's not going to like me, that person's going to think I'm foolish, that person's going to think I'm stupid. We allow other people's perception of who we are to hold us back from really our ultimate deepest desires and dreams. And it's unfortunate, because that is the number one hurdle that holds most people back subconsciously. It's nothing that's in the front of your awareness. It's in the deep, deep crevices of your mind.
So does that also end up being the case when you're looking at a trade and you have to pull the trigger?
Yep. And I'll give you an example. I think you've heard me say this before, but I don't believe the markets are controlled by fear and greed. I think the markets are controlled by fear and optimism. I don't believe most market participants are greedy at their nature, because greed is a state of the soul. Greed means that you will never have enough. You will never be enough. You can never quench and feel satisfied or satiated. You're always going to want more of something, and you're never going to give ever. Right? That's the definition of greed. If you give $50 to your church or your community bank or your food center or a hospital every month, by definition, you're not greedy, because you're giving something away. Greedy people do not do that. So if you tell yourself, I will be greedy, or I am greedy if I make a certain amount of money, and that's a subconscious feeling.
That's the judgment.
That's the judgment. You're not going to want to make the money, because if you make the money, then people are going to call you greedy. And so you'd rather just not make the money and not be called greedy. Therefore, you're not going to take the trade and hold on to the trade and actually make money.
Wow. That's really, I know, that's really hard to dig through, right? To know that simply pulling a trigger is going to do that, right? So let's dig in a little bit more about technique. You've gotten, I'll tell you a really funny story. I know you don't know this. So about 5 or 6 years after we met, you'd moved on, started doing a lot bigger things. And I bumped into another trader who was studying from you. And I don't remember exactly what he said, but he said something to the effect of, yeah, he said, Emery does that, but I don't really like that. I do this. And it was something about moving a level somehow, right? For me, I'm like, listen, trading is a very individual game, and you have to work it according to you. So all I want to give you is uh, the framework, and then how you operate as an individual is going to really determine how it is that you end up on the other side of the trade. But what I loved was, here's what I told him. I said, see, that's the great thing about Jerremy. He takes an idea, rolls it around, and says, which parts fit me, and how can I take this and help it get me to my next space? So when you come in and you look at a lot of different techniques about trading and moving in and moving out of positions, what are the anchor points that when you're talking about trading and you're saying, listen, here's how I identify a trade, here's how I determine that I'm going to execute the trade, and here are the parameters of that trade. And you use you are the first person that used the term R in terms of saying, all right, how much did I make relative to my risk on a day? So talk a little bit about that into the introduction of the trade, how you establish looking at R and then making it through. I know that's a dense question, but I'm sure you'll unpack it.
Yeah, I got you. You're so cool. So for me, it comes down to, and you know this, I teach kids a lot. I got,
which I love.
I'm counting them over there. Let's see if I can do this really quick. They're out there running around. I don't know if you guys can see them. They're playing with a wacky, wavable arm, inflatable tube guy.
Yes, I do see that.
So, I'm with a bunch of kids now. I love working with kids. I love teaching young adults the stock market. And that is a basis. My number one basis is, can a kid understand this trade? That's my big filter for any trade that I do, because I'm a kid at heart. Number one. Number two, I have a generally normal IQ. Like, yeah, whatever, 85, 90 something. It's not amazing. I'm not brilliant. It has to be simple. It has to be really, really simple for me. And so when I'm looking at a trade, I go, here's my bills or expenses. Do I think I can make and cover a particular bill with this trade? So let's say, I mean, this RV, great example. All things included, tax, tag, and titles, like $2,300 a month. Plus, you're going to have gas, we're going to have food, and you're going to have an RV stay. So that's like $5,000 a month, give or take. So 2 months of that's $10,000. Now, that's not outrageous, right? Especially for someone if they have a dream about that. So $10,000 to me is 1,000 shares, $1 10 times. That's $10,000. That's how I think about it. I think about dollars and shares. When you change your mind from I want more dollars to I want more shares, dollars don't do anything. Shares exponentially grow. And so I just try to collect more shares of things. A great example, I have 3,800 shares of Norwegian Cruise Lines, and it just looked like it had a really good setup. I bought it at 13. Right now it's at 16. The math is there, right? I can sit down and do a calculation, and boom, I know exactly how much I'm creating and earning and making. So that's how I start, right? It does. It boils down to every trade is like, what is it going to return based on my risk? So back to the risk unit thing. If I'm buying 3,800 shares of Norwegian at 13, my stop loss, or the price I'm going to get out, is 12. So that means 13 minus 12 is 1. 3,800 divided by 1 equals, right, whatever your risk is. So if your risk is $5,000, $5,000 divided by 1 equals 5,000 shares. And so I peeled off 1,200 shares when it hit 15 and a half. And now I'm slowly writing up the rest into 17 and a half. But this is the approach that I take is most traders, the challenge, the big challenge is consistency. Consistency over a period of time. You probably remember, I think it was 2012, 2013. All I did was trade Apple for 2 years. That was it. So Apple every day, Apple. That was consistency. So what I was doing is I was removing variables. The more variables you have in trading, the less great you're going to do most likely. If you can go and say to yourself or say to your kid or say to your best friend, here's what I'm doing, here's exactly how I'm doing it, here's how long I'm doing it, here's why I'm doing it, and here's the math behind it, and it breaks down very, very quickly, you're probably going to do better at that trade because it's simple, it's simplistic. And that's really my approach.
So simple ends up being the sweet spot.
Yeah, for me.
Right?
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, for me also, I call myself the Forrest Gump trader all the time because I want it to be simple because I have that same thought about, too many variables moving into spaces. So what I want to do from there in the last couple of moments that we have is I want to open up the chart. If Savannah, you would do that for us. We're going to look at the Trade of 8 platform again. And we're going to talk a little bit about Jerremy's notion of the sweet spot or my notion. I called it the sweet spot, but I think it is a sweet spot because you have to make it simple. And if it's simple and you can understand the levels, it becomes repeatable. And if it becomes repeatable, then you get to build a confidence level from that. And so me, I love the futures market. I'm in love with the futures market. I absolutely love it. Right. And so what we're looking at today on the Trade of 8 platform is this notion of simplicity for me and handling that sweet spot in terms of risk and reward. And so the great thing about risk and reward for these event contracts that we can see is that they're fixed price. $20 is the most that you can make. It's also the most that $19.75 is actually the most that you can lose because that's as expensive as things get. And so when we look at this Trade of 8 profile and we see, all right, here we can see from our area that 4280 is the one here. This is equal risk and reward from 1025. If you hold it to the end of the day, then it turns into 20 if it closes above 4290. If it closes above 4280, this 1450 ends up being the $20 that you create. So what actually happens in here is that probability sits in your favor the deeper you are in the money. And of course, that makes sense because it's just like an option. And so from our chart, what we can see is that we've had a box most of the day, and our VWAP is certainly flat. And so if we're looking at the things that say, hey, give me risk and reward, I'm fairly sure that if it stays within my pattern and I'm looking to move out, I'm going to say, hey, once that 4280 comes in just a little bit down here towards the bottom, I mean, when it comes in terms of price, right? See, here we have it. Here, that 4280 is going to start to shift in price as it moves along. You can see it shifting on the Trade of 8. 4280 is now 1075. So it's even, and it's because it's sitting at 4280. And so when it gets to that space, you can say my risk and reward are about even here in terms of the trade. And I can say, all right, I'm going to wait to sit in the box until it comes into my 4280. I'm going to buy the 4280 at my 1050, and I'm going to anticipate that my chart is going to stay above that VWAP because that's where it stayed most of the day. What is the big takeaway here? And we'll come back to me and Jerremy to wrap up the show. The big takeaway in this particular space is the plan, the discipline to holding the plan, and the consistency of holding to that plan, and also making sure the plan is doable, right? If somebody says, hey, you're going to have to close 1,000 of these to do that by the end of the month, and you're like, I don't think I can do that, then you're going to have to step back and say, all right, what can I do? How can I move? And how can I begin something that's not so daunting as where the future is? Because if I think about you at 20, and then I look at the experiences that you've had in the last year, which is, they're amazing. I mean, I've seen you all over the world this year. And to ask that 20-year-old, hey, you're going to be doing this, probably you already knew how you were going to do that, but that's because you've got that special something in there. But for most of us, we're like, that is so far off. I just don't even know what it is to start with. So it's making those small bits. So on the last leg of this questioning, if you were looking at somebody and you said, listen, trading's going to be my vehicle. I'm going to have to learn a setup that works and stick to that setup, and only stick to those setups that sit in my parameters, because I know it's not, if I step outside of that, it's going to veer me off path for getting where I want to go. How do you tell folks to say, stay in your sweet spot? And if you're lured away by it, by something else that looks a little bit shinier for the moment, but you know your sweet spot works, how do you help them stay between the guardrails?
I think the guardrail analogy is perfect, Anne-Marie, because if you don't stay in the guardrails, you fall off a cliff. Right?
Exactly.
Which means there needs to be some level of fear, of pain, right? Like, why has most people watching this never robbed a bank, allegedly? Well, it's because there's a really, really bad punishment at the end of bank robbing, right? You might be able to make some money, but the end result is not going to be great for anyone. For me, it's about a consequence. It's about some level of fence, an electric fence, a barrier. You called it a guardrail, and I love that. What I do is I say, this is what I want to do, this is how I'm going to do it, and this is the plan. And if I do not execute that plan, here's the punishment. And telling you, Anne-Marie, I had like a lifetime subscription at European Wax Center for a long time, because that was one of my punishments, right? If I didn't follow my plan, what's up, ladies at the European Wax Center? That was a deterrent from doing things that my brain thought was a good idea at the time, or my heart thought was a good idea, whatever. Someone was being led by an emotion that was not pre-planned. And that's the key. In the stock market, you do, in my opinion, or futures market, crypto market, doesn't matter. Any market that we do, we want to say, this is what I'm going to do, and then follow through with it, because that's discipline. Discipline equals success. The more disciplined people, the more successful they are in their own realms. It doesn't matter what they're doing, if it's tennis, if it's ultra marathons, if it's day trading. If you are disciplined and you are extremely consistent, you will have a measure of success guaranteed. The question is just how disciplined are you going to be?
Absolutely. Jerremy, this was more fun than I anticipated. Thank you so much for coming on. Yes. And I had high expectations. I really did. So thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for sharing things that are straightforward, but really, if we look at our own lives, we can go, nope, I'm not disciplined there. Nope, I'm not consistent there, and realize that it bleeds over every day into our daily edge for life, our daily edge for trading. Folks, for everyone who wants to know about where they can find you, what you're into, where the next adventure they can participate in, what do you got going on?
Well, I'm traveling all over the country, so please find me on Twitter. As Anne-Marie said, me and Anne-Marie chat back and forth all the time. So just reach out to me on Twitter and let's chat. I would love to meet up with you and be in your city. If someone's in the West Coast or in a national park nearby. But yeah, just honestly message me. So Twitter is a great way to communicate with me. Reallifetrading.com is my website, and I pour a lot of time and attention and energy into all the traders that work there and interact with me there. And we have incredible courses. 99% of it's free. So feel free to go through some stuff and just learn, because education is amazing.
Yeah.
And that's how we level up in life. So thanks, Anne-Marie, for giving me a
All right.
platform.
Thank you.
And thank you for being such a perfect person in my life and an incredible mentor. You're amazing.
You're the best. I look forward to talking to you soon.
Likewise,
Take care.
Tina.
Thanks.